Good evening. Thank you for attending the September 23rd, 2024 meeting of the Westerville City Schools Board of Education. Printed agendas are available for our guests, or you may find the agenda on your mobile device by connecting to the district's website at www.wcsoh.org. Click on the Our District link, select Board of Education, and then follow the board docs link to our current meeting agenda, or you can find it on the screen off to the side right here. There will be two opportunities to address the board this evening, the first being agenda item 9.01. The first set of comments is relative to agenda items 10.01 through 14.03. Please state the agenda items you are referencing at the beginning of your comments. The second opportunity is agenda item 15.01. There's a sign-up sheet located on the table on the back of the room. Each speaker will have 5 minutes to address the board. A timer will be shown on the screen. And with that, Ms. Marshall, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Davidson? Here. Mrs. Valentine? Here. Mrs. Altman? Here. Mrs. Meyer?
Here. And may I have a motion to approve a resolution to fill Board of Education vacancy?
So moved. Second.
Would you like for me to read the resolution, President Meyer?
Please.
So the resolution to fill the Board of Education vacancy, whereas a vacancy has been caused in this Board of Education by reason of resignation of Dr. Nancy Nesterbaker, and whereas the Board of Education has by law authority to fill vacancy for the unexpired term thereof, now therefore be it resolved by a majority vote of all of the remaining members of the Board of Education of the Westerville City School District that Anissa Liban be here and hereby is appointed to serve as a member of the Board of Education of this school district for the unexpired term of Dr. Nancy Nesterbaker ending December 31st, 2025.
Thank you. Any comments, discussion? All right, will you take the vote, please?
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Ottman?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
You want to do the oath?
Yeah. Could
All right,
you?
Mrs.
do the oath.
Liban, will you join me for the oath? Is this? Yep. And stare at me. And can you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duties as a board member in and for the said Westerville City School District in both Franklin and Delaware counties in Ohio to the best of your ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during the continuance in said office and until a successor is chosen and qualified? Yes. Congratulations. Welcome to the board.
Will you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right. May I have a motion to move into enter into an executive session to confer with our attorney regarding imminent court action?
So moved. Second.
Ms. Marshall?
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Liban? Yes. Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. We are going to enter into executive session and then we'll be back.
It is 6:05 p.m.
All right, we have returned from executive session. Can I move along, Nicole? We good, moving on? Okay. Next up is highlights and recognitions, and we don't have any, so moving along to 6.01, Superintendent's Report. Ms. Hamburg.
Thank you. I wanted to share an update from our state report card. So the 2024 official state report card was just released. We continue to make steady progress in several areas. Overall, we received 4 stars once again, which indicates we've exceeded state standards, which of course we expect to do. We had 2 buildings with 5 overall stars, 8 buildings with 4.5. A total of 16 of our 23 buildings exceeded state standards. So we're really pleased with that. And I just wanted to share, I wanted to share a few highlights. In the achievement category, we achieved 4 stars. Our overall performance index is 89.1, which is the 3rd straight year that we've had an increase in our PI score. And our PI score shows the aggregate performance level of all of our students. 63% of our students scored in the advanced or accelerated categories, and every grade level scored above the state average. For gap closing, we received 5 stars again, which means we significantly exceed state standards. All 9 of our demographic student groups exceeded the established PI benchmark for them in both math and English language arts. 8 out of 9 met or exceeded the graduation rate. The one that didn't meet it, it was supposed to be 93.1, and they were at 92.7, so we just missed in that 9th area. In our graduation rate component, we earned 4 stars with a 4-year graduation rate of 92.8% for the class of 2023. That rate shows an increase for 3 years in a row as well. Of the students in our graduation rate calculation, 86% of those students were educated in Westerville City Schools from grades 9 through 12. So I think that's an important thing to highlight. Our 5-year graduation rate's 95.9%, which shows our dedication to improving that rate as well. A snapshot of the class of 2023 shows that 56.1% of those students are currently enrolled in a 4-year institution of higher education, and another 14.5% of them are in a 2-year institution. And finally, we received 3 stars, which is met expectations in early literacy. That meets state standards, but is our lowest star component. However, we promoted 99.8% of our 3rd graders, and we're diligently working across our system to make sure that we're getting reading intervention. We know that's an important area for all of our students. So very pleased and proud, and I just want to take a moment to thank all of our teachers and other staff members who work so hard with our students to help us continue to grow and improve. And as always, areas that we can continue to improve, but lots of areas to celebrate. So again, thank you very much to all of our staff and to our students for your hard work.
All right, that's fabulous news. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting held on Monday, September 9th of 2024?
So moved. Second.
Any comments, discussion? All right, Ms. Marshall, will you take the vote?
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Liebian?
I will be abstaining.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. Next up, we have 8.01, public hearing for Brian Garrett. Mr. Cooper, welcome.
All right. Good evening, President Meyer, Vice President Altman, members of the board, Ms. Marshall, and Ms. Hamburg. Ohio Revised Code, or ORC 3309.345, outlines requirements for public school districts to rehire an employee who has retired most recently from the same position. Brian Garrett recently retired under the state teachers retirement system, but was most recently a bus driver for the district. Mr. Garrett has applied to be rehired by the district as a bus driver. Requirements under ORC have been completed to date. These actions include public notice at least 60 days before the retiree is to begin employment, which was fulfilled with the notice on our district website on August 2nd, 2024. The other requirement is that a public meeting on the issue is held between 15 and 30 days before the employment begins. As such, item 8.01 on this evening's agenda is for a public hearing on the reemployment of retiree Brian Garrett as a bus driver. At this time, any member who has requested to speak to the board on this issue is offered the opportunity.
Any comments, discussion?
I would just add that obviously we continue to face bus driver shortages, so we're pleased that Mr. Garrett would like to join us again.
Yeah, very pleased.
Agree.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Moving along is public comments. We don't have any for the first round. So moving along to financials, 10.01. May I have a motion to approve the financial report of investments for August 2024?
So moved. Second.
Ms. Marshall, will you please talk to us about this?
Yes, thank you, President Meyer and members of the board. So we are going over the August 31st month-end financials. Just a reminder, July is the beginning of our fiscal year, so August would be the end of the second month. For our general fund year-to-date revenues, we had $77.5 million. In year-to-date expenditures, we had $35 million. For our unencumbered fund balance in our general operating fund, we ended with $187.2 million. And for all funds, we had year-to-date receipts of $94.5 million and year-to-date expenditures of $50.9 million. And then we ended with an unencumbered fund balance for all funds of $253.4 million. And that's all I have for you on that this month.
Any comments, discussion? Okay. Ms. Marshall, will you please take the vote?
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Lieband? Yes. Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. And may I have a motion to approve the fiscal year 2025 permanent appropriations?
So moved. Second.
Ms. Marshall, will you please talk to us about this?
Yes, thank you again. So the board approved our temporary appropriations in June to get us started for the year. And by law, we are required to have our permanents in place by September 30th. And so those are presented here for you today. We will have some adjustments coming in October as grants are carrying over, and we have different adjustments. And then we'll come back in November after the forecast. So this is just to get the permanent set for the year.
Any questions or discussion? Okay, will you please take the vote?
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Lieband?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. And may I have a motion to approve the purchases in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 5705.41D1 and Board Policy 6320?
So moved. Second.
Ms. Marshall?
Yes, thank you again. So this is where we have a purchase order that is dated after an invoice date, and it's greater than $3,000. So we have a couple of invoices for some HVAC projects at South, and we had, that was just some confusion with the timing, and then we had the coach's tool chest, for a subscription, and that was a different date of what we anticipated for the start of that. And then we had one for, we had to open to the distributor instead of the manufacturer, so that was just a change in the vendor, but because we were past that month, we couldn't change that. And like I said, these have all been budgeted for, so I do recommend that the board approve those.
Any questions or discussion? Okay. Will you take the vote, please?
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lieband?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. And is it okay if we take the consent personal consent agenda as one? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the personal consent agenda 11.01 through 11.14?
So moved. Second.
And welcome, Mr. Cooper.
Good evening once again. Tonight's personnel consent agenda includes action items with regard to resignations, retirements, leaves of absence, contract status changes, one-time pays, and other employment-related decisions. Additionally, there is one MOA with our Westerville Educators Association. We have 5 staff members who have announced their retirement on this evening's agenda. Michael Anna Hansley is retiring after 23 and a half years of service to our district. Paul Schooley after 24 and a half years of service. Amy Hudson with 28 years of service. Sharon Owens with 30 years of service. And Mark Stevens with 24 years of service to Westerville. We appreciate all they have done in their years and certainly wish them the best in their retirement years ahead. Our MOA with the WEA this evening is a renewal with regard to teachers covering for instructional aides when a substitute is not available. Due to the current 1-year extension of the WEA collective bargaining agreement, it is recommended this 1-year agreement is also extended. At this time, I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments?
No, but I'm going to channel someone else who used to do this and say that I think that comes to 130 years of experience.
Some quick math.
So, thank you to all of them. That's amazing.
That is,
We wish them the best.
That was quick math, Jen.
yeah, that was.
Good job. Don't check me.
I'll check it when I get to that.
All right, and take the vote.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Ottman?
Yes.
Mrs. Leeman?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
President Meyer? And can I just real quick?
Yep. Yep. My apologies. I misunderstood the public hearing. So we're going back to agenda item 9.01. So these are public comments that are relative to agenda items 10.01 through 14.03. And I just want to remind everybody that each speaker will have 5 minutes to address the board. Please state the agenda item that you're referencing at the beginning of your comments. A timer will be shown on the screens, and Mr. Reeves will call time when 5 minutes has elapsed. Please keep your comments professional, avoid the use of inappropriate language, and refrain from identifying individuals in the event of a complaint. Please address your comments to the board and not to the audience. And we have a lot of people here for the first set of public comments, so I'm just going to ask that if you have nothing new to say and someone's already said it, you feel free to come up, state your name, your address, and you echo so-and-so's comments, or just provide some written comments, and we do read every single comments. And then just ask that people refrain from clapping so we can get through all the comments tonight. And our first speaker is Jaclyn Fry. Welcome, and I'm hoping I said your last name right. Okay, great.
Hello. Oh, we're in the big room. My name is Jaclyn Fry. My address is 3675 Panama Drive. I am here tonight in my role as speaker coordinator and speaking on behalf of Westerville's Parents United Against Release Time Religious Instruction, a group whose majority is parents of children that are currently enrolled and attending Westerville City Schools. We are here to continue to speak with our concerns with the RTRI policy. Tonight we are planning on limiting our speakers to respect the board's time and to allow you to get back to the other important issues that are facing our district. We have presented our case thoroughly to the board over the last few weeks in our speeches, letters, and emails. Our group continues to have concerns of reliability to the district, disruption of the school day, not only with students but also with staff, a disruption that has been evident in the last few very long board meetings, and the potential lack of students having a true feeling of inclusion and an increased risk of bullying culture. We are concerned that the liability the district may assume, even with LifeWise saying they are assuming liability. The true question is, can the district truly be free of liability if something happens when the students are attending LifeWise? We have concerns over the disruption of the school day. While LifeWise states it occurs at a natural transition time, anyone who has tried to wrangle a group of students for a field trip or any functions know it is never easy and never smooth. The transition is going to get harder as more release time groups enter the district. Right now, Westerville only has one, LifeWise, but there have been multiple RTRA groups popping up over Ohio in the last year, and soon they will be competing for students. I have learned within the next year the Satanic Temple will have enough volunteers to bring their Hail program to Westerville. How easy and smooth will it be for the schools to manage the flow of students and the board to keep track of compliance with multiple RTRI programs? LifeWise has not been compliant for the entire time it has been active. It wasn't until our group brought the liability issue to the board that LifeWise lack of compliance was brought to light, and that only now is LifeWise being held accountable. We are concerned with the increased bullying culture related to LifeWise. We have had parents address this board and state how bullying has occurred due to students attending LifeWise. I want to be clear. We have never accused LifeWise of being bad people. I know a couple LifeWise teachers, and they are good people with good intentions. We have never stated that LifeWise was teaching kids to bully others, and I am sure that they teach against it. However, I am a mom, and my daughter, since she was young, has loved to throw rocks. She never saw me throw a rock, and definitely I didn't teach her how, but yet from the time she could grip them, she loved to test gravity and toss them. I have worked hard to teach her not to, but every once in a while she finds a nice one and wants to see how far she can make it go. Bullying is the same way. Kids aren't taught to bully, they just do it. LifeWise isn't teaching kids to do it, but they're filling their pockets with rocks every week and telling them not to throw them. I have sat here in the last couple meetings and I have been called a non-believer, those people, atheists, and last week, a secular humanist. Additionally, at a non-board meeting, we were called black-shirted thugs. LifeWise feels anyone who does not believe as they do has no faith. Our group is pluralistic in their beliefs. We have members of the Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, and Muslim communities, and yes, there are those who are agnostic and atheistic. I personally have deep faith and belief and trust in God, but I am not a Christian. Because of this, LifeWise feels I have no faith and I am persecuting Christians for their faith. This is simply not true. We are parents who want our children to attend school free of religious influence. I would ask for parents today who currently have children enrolled in Westerville City Schools K through 5 to please stand. Now showing who the parents are standing, we are in a sea of red shirts. Those of us who are in black are the minority. But as you listen to the speakers, note the parents of the currently enrolled Westerville students who are speaking on behalf of the minority who is most affected by policies such as these. Those who will lose a feeling of inclusion by not being allowed to go someplace with their friends solely because their family is of a different faith. Parents who will have to help their children have conversations well beyond their years defending their faith and their relationship with God. There are 8,760 hours in a year. That leaves 900 of those only go to this school year. There are 7,860 hours for parents to fill their children's life with religion and for Christians a deep love focused on Jesus. Let's keep all 900 of those hours focused on our children in school. I would like to lastly welcome Anissa. We say we are ecstatic at your appointment. Your resume and community work is impressive. And it is wonderful to see representation on this board that shows Westerville's breadth of culture and diversity. We want the entire board to know that we support you. We know you have a difficult job and balance the needs of the entire district. We support you no matter what your decision is. We support you in guiding the district and our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Time's up. Thank you. All right. Let's please keep it respectful. Next up is Katrina Cook. Welcome.
I can't really add to that. So I'm just going to say I'm speaking to agenda item 13. My name is Dr. Katrina Cook. I live at 594 South Spring Road. I have a child in Westerville schools. I have a child at 11th grade at Westerville North, and I have a child in 7th grade at Walnut Springs. I support rescinding the release time for religious instruction policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Becky Lee Seymour. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Becky Leach Seymour, and I live at 370 Hampton Park North. I have a daughter that will be entering kindergarten in 2025, and I support rescinding the release time for religious instruction policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Becca Meum. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Becca Meum. Family and I reside at 4509 Smoky Place. And again, not going to follow that, just want to echo in support of rescinding the policy of religious time instruction. And I have a son here in the ELC. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I think this is Jamie Parks. Welcome. I think you have handwriting like me.
Hello, my name is Jamie Parks. I live at 4509 Smoky Place. I have a child that goes to the ELC, and I would also like to echo my support for rescinding the policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Elise Smith. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Elise Smith. I'm speaking to agenda item 13. My address is 380 Windermere Drive here in Westerville. I have two children in Westerville schools. One is in first grade and the other is in third grade. And I support rescinding the policy, just as the previous speaker said. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have Lucy Walk. Welcome.
Hi, I'm a Westerville City student and I attend LifeWise. I am also a part of the equity team at Emerson. My school counselor, Miss Wiseman, has been implementing the Circle of Control at school. The Circle of Control of Courage is divided into 4 parts, which are mastery, independence, generosity, and belonging. If one of those elements are excluded, then the circle is broken and it negatively impacts our daily life. LifeWise is a place of belonging for me and many others. Without it, I'll lose a piece of me of who I am. LifeWise helps me be proud of my beliefs and learn many important qualities. I have learned many vital lessons in LifeWise, and I want to continue to do so. Westerville's school motto is where you belong, but me and many others wouldn't feel accepted without LifeWise Academy. Please do not end this life-giving program. Thank you.
Swap. Next up, thank you. Next up, we have Jackson Speakman. I think that's right. Speakman. Sorry. Welcome.
It's hard to follow that one. Well, good evening. My name is Jackson Speakman. I live at 7470 Vantage Drive, and I'm a product of Westerville City Schools. I'd like to first begin by thanking the board for such a forum to debate and discuss the issue at hand. Open decorum is a bedrock belief in any free and civil society. It was our second president, John Adams, who once said that our founding documents presuppose a religious and moral people, and that they were wholly inadequate for any other. According to the Library of Congress, 98% of Americans at the time of John Adams' presidency were Christian. 55 of 56 of America's founding fathers were Bible-believing, church-attending Christians. Christianity was the body politic that our founders had in mind when they forged our founding document, so much so that the book of Deuteronomy was the most quoted book at the time of America's founding. Our founding documents were not informed by atheism or non-Christian religions. However, America's founders did accommodate for non-Christian and atheistic expressions of faith and morality on the basis that upward pursuit of God and/or morality would be sufficient in producing a uniting moral and social thread. What's often not acknowledged is how rare this idea is, that a people could be united by mental and spiritual assent. The rare idea emerged because Christianity specifically created the necessary preconditions for it to occur. A quick examination of any country throughout history that has embraced and continued to embrace this idea will reflect a country that maintains the highest standards of living possible. It is the countries that reject this idea that remain, in many senses of the word, impoverished. Christianity influenced the development of all Western legal systems, insisting on concepts like the presumption of innocence, due process, and a jury of one's peers. Christianity created scholasticism and laid the way for foundations for what would directly become universities. Christian thought introduced the idea of limited government and rightly affirmed the distinction between church, family, and state. Christianity produced some of the greatest art known to mankind, produced by artists like Michelangelo, Bach, Dostoevsky, Milton, and Lewis. Christianity presents the highest possible standards of humanity because of the fundamental belief that every human is created in the image of God, which is why Christianity is the driving force behind the eradication of the abomination of slavery. My argument tonight is simple. Christianity and the study thereof produces the necessary preconditions for intellectual and moral advancement. LifeWise teaches Christianity, therefore LifeWise advocates for intellectual and moral advancement. This evening, I will not pretend to stand in a position of neutrality. I think that every person should be Christian. I'm not ashamed of my faith. My faith is inherently American.
Guys, please.
I am not ashamed of my faith. My faith is inherently American. Furthermore, I think that dismissing Christianity from any form is fundamentally un-American. Here are some questions I would like all of us to consider. What is stopping other religions from doing the same thing as LifeWise? If we are in a free market of ideas, what is preventing other religions or atheistic groups from making their LifeWise equivalent? The answer is simple. Christianity is motivated by sharing what it considers to be the most supreme message possible, that sinful human beings can have peace with God through faith in Jesus Christ. Our genuine faith is seen by our actions, and thus LifeWise. So it follows that one who merely complains about LifeWise, rather than actively offering to students their worldview alternative, is being inconsistent. I can only include that their motivation to share said worldview must be low because they have no good news. Their faith and works do not align. The Christian name evangelical is intentional. Evangelical literally means the good news. It is out of this good news that produced Harvard, Princeton, and Yale. Nearly all of the hospitals were founded by Christians. All of the orphanages and halfway houses were founded by Christians and managed by Christians. Wherever Christianity goes, good follows. If our second president was right and our founding documents do presuppose a religious and moral people, then my question is tonight, what is wrong with LifeWise teaching, religion, and morality? Moreover, if Christianity has produced so much of a net positive, why are so many people against it? Christianity and the study thereof produces the necessary preconditions for intellectual and moral advancement. LifeWise teaches and advocates for moral advancement and intellectual and moral advancement. To be against the Christian faith is to be against the substance of...
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
you.
All right, next up is Matt Shudmar. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Welcome. Please correct me.
No problem. I am Matt Shoemaker. I am a lifetime resident of Westerville, well, Pleasant Township. I went to all the Westerville schools, not all of them, of course. Huber Ridge, I went to Hamby, I went to Walnut Springs, I went to Westerville South and Westerville North. I've lived here my entire life. And I was raised through the school systems. I am a participant in our community. I've been here for, for a long time, okay? So basically, what I want to just say is that, you know, everybody virtue singles, it seems like, in our society anymore. And they have something they want to espouse, okay? And with Christianity, they have virtues also. And these virtues, I would think, would be something that our society would want to espouse. And these virtues are, they're called the fruit of the Spirit. And these virtues are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. There is no laws against these things. So these are the things I believe the Christian society and our society in general should promote. And that's pretty much what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up we have Paul Buza. Welcome. Paul Buza, I think.
Longo, Buza. So I'm to speak on agenda topic 1301. I would like to thank you for your time and this opportunity to present a few points regarding the LifeWise upcoming decision. I live at 182 Farthing Court, Westerville resident for over 20 years. My wife and I purposefully moved into Westerville to have our 3 children get their fundamental education in the Westerville public schools. My first point is to say thank you for providing that education. All 3 of our adult children are now successful in their successful careers. And we recently were allowed the privilege to see our daughter get hooded as in her ceremony as she got her doctoral degree. So again, thank you very much. In addition to the public school education, my wife and I ensured that our children were raised to nurture their Christian faith and develop sound principles and a desire to care for and to be considerate of everyone in God's creation. After attending the August 26th board meeting, I wanted to address some points that were raised in that meeting. First off, at least one parent shared that they have a children with special needs who requires highly specialized support, with a concern that the staff at LifeWise would not be able to provide that support for their child. I agree that each parent should advocate for their own child and make informed decisions about every activity in which they participate. If an individual child would not be successful in sports, marching band, theater, or any number of other activities, we do not shut down the entire program. Each parent and child are encouraged to thoughtfully research the environment, the leaders, the expectations, and make informed decisions on those programs in which their child participates. LifeWise is a voluntary offering. Every parent and child should have the freedom to choose to participate. I have 2 other major points that I'd like to make, but I want to cut to the chase and just say that in closing, as we, the residents of Westerville, are entrusting all school board members to provide unbiased and an unfiltered process to make decisions, ensuring that the needs of all students are considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, thank you. Next up is Sher Connell. Welcome. She'll restate it, yeah.
Hello, my name is Sher Connell. I've been a resident of Westerville for over 30 years. My husband, 5 children, and 1 grandchild have either completed their education at Westerville or are in the process of attending Westerville schools. My overall experience at this school system has really been outstanding, and I do want to thank this board and all of the Westerville staff members for providing an excellent and supportive education. So thank you. I'm going to make just a couple of points on items that I don't think have been addressed up to this point in time. The first item is from the Westerville City Schools website, the Administrative Guideline Manual, code AG 2270. And I quote from the Westerville website, "Religion in the curriculum. The Board of Education has adopted a policy favoring the understanding of religions by the students of this district and the contributions religions have made in the advancement of civilization. The board has further acknowledged that it may not adopt any policy or rule respecting or promoting an establishment of religion," and this is the critical point, "or prohibiting any student from the free, individual, and voluntary exercise or expression of the student's religious beliefs." End quote. Preventing access to the LifeWise program is prohibiting our students from free exercise of their religious beliefs. Criticizing the children who are sharing their Christian faith and values with peers is out of compliance with the above administrative guideline. My next point is also from the Westerville City Schools website, the strategic plan that is dated July 2024. Quote, "Priority 1, safe and inclusive environments." Objective 1.2 states, "Create accessible learning environment to ensure every student feels empowered and experiences a sense of belonging through a culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion." End quote. A decision to rescind the policy that allows the LifeWise program would send a message to current students participating in this program that their religious beliefs and rights are not recognized or respected. They are being punished for exercising their constitutional First Amendment rights by speaking freely with peers about their religious beliefs. Their perspective and voice is being intentionally excluded from the diversity and inclusion aspects of the #1 priority within the strategic plan. There are over 60 Christian churches in the 43081 and 43082 zip codes. We know this school district serves beyond that. But for those over 60 Christian churches, if the policy that allows LifeWise is rescinded, this board is choosing to ostracize the Christian faith community. If the rescind proceeds, will there be a subsequent action to update the objective in the strategic plan to be transparent, that the Christian faith is specifically excluded from representation in the Westerville City School District's diversity and inclusion priorities? I also have some information about U.S. Supreme Court rulings that have protected the right to publicly express religion, including a ruling that occurred in a school setting. In the June 2022 decision in Kennedy versus Bremerton School District, the Supreme Court upheld that Mr. Kennedy is entitled in summary judgment on his religious exercise and free speech claims, and his observance of religion within the school setting was upheld by the United States Supreme Court. I pray that this board makes a decision to continue the policy. God bless all of you, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you. Next up is James Finnery. James Finnery. Welcome.
Hello. I don't think I could say anything better than what was just said. I'm here just as a father, as a business owner, as a voter here in Westerville. I went to elementary school, middle school, and high school here in Westerville. And when I considered raising a family, this is where I wanted to be. So I moved back to Westerville in order to make sure that my daughter was in Westerville schools, and any children that I raise would be raised in Westerville schools, because I believe in it. Sorry. I don't really know what to say to convince you that this is a valuable program, that it's important to our children, it's important to my child, and it's important to us. I just ask that you please consider the kids who attend LifeWise, and just please don't take from them. This is something that is valuable to them, valuable to their education. Theology is something to be studied, so this is a way that they can get that education as well. That's really all I have. I just pray that you make a good decision with your hearts. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Tobias Gordon. Welcome.
Good evening, Board, Superintendent. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having my name is Tobias Gordon. I live at 6688 Collingwood Drive, Westerville, Ohio, 43082. And I'm here to speak on, as many others, item number 13.01. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me once again regarding the release time for religious instruction policy. This is my third time in a row speaking on this because I find it very important, but I will be brief. I am here as a parent of a second grader at Hanby, a preschooler, and 18-month-old twins, who I also intend to bring through the Westerville School District. I attended Westerville City Schools from kindergarten through 12th grade and chose to have my children attend here as well. I am vested in this district and the best possible outcome and education for all of our students. I am here missing family dinner and bedtime because I care that much about this situation. I applaud the board's proposal to rescind the district RTRI policy. From a logistics perspective alone, the policy is unsustainable. Religious instruction needs to be outside of school time. I agree with prior statements in favor of rescinding this policy. Thank you for all you do to make this community a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, just a reminder, I do appreciate you guys, not repeating, but we have some more to get through, so feel free to just step up, say your name, your address, and if you support or whoever's comments. Next up, we have Emily Dinsmore. Welcome.
Good evening, board members. My name is Emily Dinsmore. I'm a resident of Westerville. I live at 297 Fairdale Avenue. Although I'm originally from Northeast Ohio, my husband is a lifelong native of Westerville, attending Westerville schools and graduating from Westerville South High School. Together, we have chosen to make Westerville our home for the last 8 years, and we love being a part of this community. Unlike most others speaking tonight, I do not have children in Westerville schools. I do not volunteer with LifeWise, nor do I have any children in my extended family that attend LifeWise. I come before you today as a concerned citizen of Westerville. In the past few years, Westerville as a community has made great strides towards becoming a diverse, inclusive city, becoming known as a place where all people are welcome. In 2021, the city even brought on a DEI director to steer this effort. Westerville's diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging vision statement says on the website, quote, "to serve and empower all people, both in our organization and the community at large, and ensure that service remains accessible, responsive, and inclusive for a thriving, sustainable, and connected city of Westerville. The mission statement also reads as follows, quote, "To facilitate a culture where diversity, equity, and inclusion are respected and intentionally valued by implementing thoughtful and innovative strategies in policy and organizational process." As a resident of this city, it is quite concerning to me that a double standard is being held when it comes to inclusion of religious freedoms in our schools. How is it that the city of Westerville, who strives so hard to include and accept all people despite differences, and who upholds inclusion in such esteem, would not allow a Supreme Court affirmed elective school program to exist in our schools? Where is the respect, freedom, and equality for those students and parents that wish to participate in LifeWise Academy? They deserve the right to choose to participate in LifeWise Academy just as much as those who choose not to participate. So I ask you, why remove this as an option if it is completely voluntary? We must protect and preserve the rights that are given to us by God and as Americans. What is decided about this present issue will set a precedent for the future of this great city. Someday I hope to have my own children who are allotted the freedom to participate in elective programs here in Westerville. So I ask the board to keep the integrity and reputation of Westerville City Schools and the Westerville community intact by allowing equal freedom for LifeWise Academy and all potential future religious programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have Naomi Banga. Naomi Kabanga. Okay. Oh, welcome. And my apologies if I said it wrong. It's a little hard to read the handwriting.
Good evening. So my kids attend Westerville City School. It's a second grade. So I like the LifeWise program because it teaches my kid about how to be a good person. They teach him about the characteristic, how to be friendly, kind, lovely. So those stuff help my kids to grow up in confidence and to be more friendly in this community. Because I'm from Africa, so I live in Westerville. And then to meet that program for me was very helpful because they teach my kids the good way to live in the society. So he learned how to live with friends in self-control, to control his emotional, to take care of friends, to use the kind words as a Christian kid. And then the other situation is out of America, we know that America is the state of freedom. And then they say, in God we trust. That's the way we know America outside. So when you can remove this program, I do not understand that freedom, the freedom we know America outside. So as you say, you don't want this program anymore, I'm confused because I know where I am is the freedom state, the state of freedom. And then they allow people to practice their religions in freedom. So this evening, I'm very confused because the way we know America outside is the state of freedom and the state who believe in God, who trust in God. And then I can say, when you read Proverbs 22, verse 6, they say, teach your kids about God, because when he grows, he will not forget what you teach him. Sorry for my English, I'm more French than English. Sorry for that. So that verse is like the basic of my life as a parent. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. So when I found LifeWise, it was for me, like the hands who gonna help me to educate my kids. And then this evening, I'm sorry, I'm very confused. I'm in America, who they told me they trust in God is a freedom of state, and then they treat people like they restrict them to practice in what in belief. I'm so confused. I do not know if I am in the America we know from outside. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Rose Bamba. I'm not sure if that's an E, a B, or an S. I'm sorry. Rose Bamba or Somba? It's kind of scratched out. All right. Then we'll move along to Ann Shroyer. Is Ann here? Welcome.
Hello. Sorry, I'm never sure how loud I'm going to be. My name is Ann Shroyer. I live at 476 Belfry Drive here in Westerville. I am speaking to agenda item 13. I have a fifth grader at Robert Frost Elementary, where I do want to share they go over the Falcon 5 in every piece of correspondence that we get. I should have it memorized, but I just looked it up. So they learn to be safe, respectful, responsible, proud, and ready to learn. So I am grateful that they do a lot of character building already in school as a part of their curriculum. So I do appreciate that. I also want to say that I'm just here to repeat what some other folks have said, that I'm here to support rescinding policy 52223, absences for religious instruction. I do believe that there needs to be a separation of church and state, and while this program or other programs may be great, there is plenty of time after school for that. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next up, we have Deborah Gerber. Welcome. I'm sure you'll correct me if I said that wrong.
You did great. Thank you. Yes, I'm Deborah Gerber, and I live at 265 West Fountain Avenue in Delaware. And I did speak last time, so I think you might remember that I have kind of a very international background, which I think contributes to the fact that certain things become very obvious. Cultural ideas. And I would like to, I was sitting next to a father that I spoke with earlier, who told me, you know, we're talking about, we've heard that we're supposed to have the kids here are supposed to have the freedom to speak of their own religion in school. He told me that his daughter had been told that she was not allowed to speak of God in school. I mean, that is shocking. Aside from allowing children to go out for a particular type of instruction, to forbid a child to speak of something that is dear to their heart, whatever it is, but in particular, if it's something that's a very large part, because if you have a real belief system, which is what Christianity does, you know, it's meant to encompass the whole of your life. And if somebody says to you, you cannot speak of that here, that is an attack. That is an attack on your whole belief system. And the idea that we can create a space that is completely free of religion, which I think there are some people that I've heard that somebody advocated that, because that somehow remains neutral, is a complete figment of people's imagination. If you create a space that is free of religion, what you're saying is that there are things that we consider so unimportant or so evil, whichever way you want to put it, that they must not be spoken of. We will not talk about them. You're teaching a child actually atheism. That is the premise of removing all religion. Now, I understand there are different religions, and I think it's a very legitimate thing to speak of different religions, to have discussions, and that is the way that America has always been. We have permitted people to come and to speak and to discuss, to challenge. This is the way that the best ideas rise to the top. That is why in America we have always had such a thriving nation. You know, it's not because there are not smart people in other countries. In China, you have people extremely well educated. Same thing in many other countries. But you know, they come here to go to university because we have traditionally had and encouraged the freedom for people to explore ideas and to challenge the established order if we feel like there are things that need to be improved. So I would challenge you to continue with that tradition, because otherwise you are closing down an entire avenue of humanity, you know, of human thought. And that's a very serious thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Donald Smith. Donald Smith? Okay. Jason Winks? Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Jason Winks. I grew up at 5765 Cairo Road and attended school, kindergarten through 12th grade in Westerville City Schools. As a member of the LGBTQ+ community who attended school here, I can tell you from personal experience that extremist religious groups pushing their ideals on the school body was extremely, incredibly othering and terrifying as a student here. I was forced out of the closet by another student during my senior year who kept harassing me before finally asking directly in front of the entire homeroom class if I were gay. I said yes, I was tired of lying. Immediately, the students in that class started shouting out all sorts of horrible, vulgar insults and insufferable questions at me. The teacher didn't even step in to protect me or to try to take control of the situation at all. I was asked deeply personal questions about my romantic practices in gory details, while the teacher didn't do anything to intervene. I was told I was going to burn in Hades regularly, as well as many other more graphic and offensive insults for the rest of the school year. I typically verbally took on the worst offenders, often insulting them more creatively than they seemed capable of, threatening them, mocking them, and generally just trying my best not to get into physical altercations by scaring them enough to not want to take me on. This was only the last few months of my final year at Westerville North, but it was insane and quite traumatic. I had to really stick up for myself and advocate for myself constantly to avoid being walked all over. These sorts of religious people are teaching kids that my very existence is wrong. If people want to do that with their children in the mornings, the evenings, the weekends, at home, or at churches of their choice, etc., there's nothing I can really do about that but be saddened by it. But for them to regularly take children out of public schools in the middle of their day to go teach them harmful rhetoric is absolutely disgusting to me. For children to miss class time to be taught hatred is incredibly gross and un-American. This sort of thing teaches them that LGBTQ+ people are beneath other humans, that we are wrong, that we're other, that we're less than. Letting this go on during the school day is just plain wrong. If parents want to send their kids to this place on their own time, that's their right, no matter how awful it is. To take them away from their school days is just wrong and goes against our nation's separation of church and state. I have a friend I've known since high school whose son goes to school in Indiana, another place where this group has infiltrated their school district and is doing the same program. He has a class every day with only 4 students in the class, the whole day, every day, or the whole classroom every day, once a day. And other students in the school ostracize those 4 kids and make them feel terrible for not going with them. On your website, under the school board's values, you include these 2 sections. Respect, we recognize individuality and that every person has worth, dignity, and the right and ability to learn and contribute. And inclusiveness, we believe every person should have an equal opportunity to access and participate in all educational offerings. These people do not share those values, so I ask you to please keep them out of your schools. As someone who has been through the school system with kids raised by religious groups like this, I have to tell you, it is not a good time. There's absolutely no reason and no excuse for this to occur during the school day. These people can operate at any hours they choose. They do not have to do this during the school day. They have no right to interfere and interrupt actual educational opportunities to do their indoctrinations. Thanks so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next up, we have Elizabeth Knighton. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Knighton. I live at 1096 Carousel Court here in Westerville, 43081, and I am speaking to agenda item 12. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak regarding the proposed change of the date for kindergarten entrance from September 30 to August 1. My request is that instead of just 1 year of grandfathering for students born between those dates, that you would allow 2 to 3 years of opting in, so that families like mine who already have children in preschool have the option to have their children attend school on the schedule they are anticipating. So let me explain. I have a daughter with a birth date of September 6, who's this year attending a 3-year-old preschool program. Next year, she would attend 4's preschool, and then we had anticipated that the following year she would go to kindergarten. However, if this policy passes as currently written, she won't be able to, as by that point, her birthday will be after the cutoff, and the 1-year grandfathering year will be over. The timing of the adoption of the date would require my daughter to repeat a year of preschool programming or stay home to fill the extra year. By considering only 1 year of opting in, you've allowed for the students who are already in 4's preschool, but created an awkward situation for those of us with children in 3's, even though that's the age that many families do start preschool. If the school district cutoff had already been on the horizon last year, I might have been able to make a different decision about starting her in preschool this year. And furthermore, I might have, had the date change already been on the horizon, we might have not sent our older daughter, who's a kindergartner this year at Mark Twain. She also has a summer birthday. So we might have been able to hold her back so that our daughters, who are exactly 2 years apart in age, could stay 2 years apart in school. This change would force them to 3. And so I'm just asking that since providing 2 or 3 years of opt-in during the transition from the September 30 date to August 1st will allow families like mine to proceed on the schedule that we were anticipating, while ultimately achieving the goal of changing the cutoff. As a former teacher, I do fully support the earlier date, but as a mother, I request that you make the transition more gradual to lessen the blow for families who are already in the preschool years. Thank you very much for considering this request.
Thank you. Next up, we have Holly Smith. Holly Smith. Okay. I think this says Ricky Coons Manako. Is that right? Welcome.
Hello, my name is Ricky Coons Monaco.
I am a mother of 3 children who go to Westerville City School District. I have one who goes here to the ELC, one who is at Whittier in 4th grade, and another who is in 8th grade at Blendon. I am a treasurer for one of our schools. I go ahead and I am one of the events coordinators for one of our schools. I also participate and donate my time and my energy to ensure that we have an athletic team for our middle schoolers for lacrosse. My husband and I run the board for that to make sure that those programs continue moving forward. So I spend a lot of time with our students here. I volunteer a lot of my time with the students here, and I care deeply about Westerville. My husband graduated from Westerville North, and I am originally from Seattle. I just wanted to say I'm very sorry for anybody that is here who is not Christian and for you to feel any sort of way. I apologize. That's not how I would hope anybody in Westerville would feel, and not how I would want our children here to feel while they are in school at all. Unfortunately, I believe that is how they are feeling right now, which is why I'm here to talk about item 13 and my support for having that rescinded. I believe that children do naturally want to participate in these things, right? But religion is something that should take place at home. Religion is a choice for families, and there is plenty of time before school and after school for those things to happen on the weekends. And I think that a family is a place where that needs to grow, not the middle of the school day. I went to college originally to be a teacher. I did plenty of student teaching before I decided to go into the corporate world. And ultimately, I spent time in classrooms. Those transition times are not easy for our teachers, right? Going to lunch is not an easy time. Going to recess is not an easy time. So to expect that our children can exit and go somewhere else on a really fun bus and not have children distracted by that isn't realistic. So I'm asking that you all stand here and look at what this does to our teachers, look at what it does to other children who are here in our district, look at what it does and what situation it puts other parents in, and hopefully you'll see that this is an inclusive way to look at things, because we don't want any children to feel as though they are being left out of anything that we are doing in Westerville. I personally work very hard in our schools to make sure that all of our children feel welcome and they feel that they are part of something and they are equal. And it is not fair that there is a group that is coming in that is making our children feel as though they are not equal. Whether they are Christian or they are Muslim or they are Jewish, or heck, some of them now think they're cats, and that is completely okay. You know, that is who they are and who they want to be, and they can go ahead and do that because they'll eventually grow up to be adults and they will figure it all out. But that's not happening during school. They're all talking about that at home, and their parents are making that choice. At no point in school are their teachers or anybody talking to them about being a cat. So why would we talk to them about going to church? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Ingrid Beardman. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Ingrid Biederman at 147 Daleview Drive. I have already spoken with the board before. However, I support rescinding the Westerville RTRI policy. No school employee or board member is threatening to come into your churches, your temples, or religious institutions and demand that you stop practicing your religion. I wish that RTRI would be rescinded merely because it would make for a more equal learning opportunity for all children. I was raised Christian. I am now an atheist. I am already having to have difficult conversations with my 4-year-old, who will be a kindergartner next year, that he will not be on that big red bus that he can see from his home, because that is not what we are. We don't follow that. And he is already upset, and I can see that he's already being set up to be in a position where he will feel left out because he knows he will not be on that red school bus. There is no reason LifeWise cannot function before or after school hours. If you choose to participate in LifeWise, great, do it before or after school, or any other, and this not just LifeWise, any other religious-based club, and it is a club, because it is not ordained by the school, it is not something that the school is functioning and controlling, so choose it outside of the school day. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few more, so if you don't have anything new to add, I just ask if you'd be willing to come up, state your name, your address, whether you echo so-and-so's comments. Next up is Stephen Childers. Welcome.
Good day. I've been a resident of Columbus. My name is Stephen Childers. I've been a resident paying taxes for Westerville for 14 years. I am a product of education in 2 countries and 3 states. I've seen much of this world, and I know what makes this country great. And I know what makes other countries not so great. We are great because we are good. You know, and I want to say this first. Actually, I don't know anyone in LifeWise, so I'm not affiliated with them. I'm not speaking for them. But Proverbs 9:10 teaches us that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. I've listened to a lot of ideas, a lot of isms. So let's touch on atheism. I've been to Auschwitz. I've been to horrible places, and I know that atheism is the reason for over 100 million deaths.
All right, please, let's keep
That's fine. Now, and I recognize petty tyrants, and this school, to the idea of holding Jesus Christ out of it is absurd. That is absurd. I actually came here with the original intent was to come here and talk about qualifications. On Friday the 13th, I received an email, and it kind of ties in with what's going to LifeWise as well. I responded seeking additional information. In that email, in its own wording, a new board member was going to come on without the voters voting on it. And it was describing a Somali Muslim activist.
Sir.
That's fine. That's your words. That's what you described.
Yeah.
Now, that's fine. Why did you feel the need to disclose religion?
We're not targeting.
That's fine. I'm asking, why did you feel the need to disclose religion and lineage? I don't think those are important items.
You need to stop referring to a specific person on this board. You keep them general. We're not calling out board members.
Okay, so it's interesting. That was an interesting thing to be touted. Okay, I don't really care if someone's an atheist, a Muslim, a Christian, whatever else they're brought on, but that was brought before us. Now I'm kind of curious about the spread of the different groups of people. We've got Asians, we've got Buddhists. Are we, why wasn't that chosen? And at the same time, I come here and I learn about, okay, we're going to push out the Christians. And I honestly just don't understand that. Like, we're pushing in, it didn't need to be said. Why? We're pushing in one group and we're pushing out another. Can you give me the juxtaposition on these two decisions, favoring one religion, an activist, against another organization? And further, reading through qualifications, I noted a CEO position, and I didn't find that on the Somali community link.
Right,
it is
sir.
Mr. Mahdi Tekilo.
We are not calling out.
That's fine. I'm just saying that was not on a LinkedIn title.
If you have something to say, it is not about anyone on this particular board. We are not targeting anybody here. We're not making it personal.
What is the juxtaposition on these two different decisions? We're pushing out LifeWise, and we're pulling in another viewpoint, another religious view. What is that?
5 minutes. Your time's up, thank you. You're done. All right, next up we have Kai Tran. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. President. And thank you for just letting me address the board. And Ms. Laban, congratulations on your appointment. It is something to be celebrated, and I trust that you will make the right decision. My name is Dr. Ka Tran. I live on 5744 Medallion Drive East. And I have, as a resident of Westerville, I do have 3 children in our Westerville system. And I come here really just to be an observer. One of the things that I have observed is that in the introduction, I noticed that a board member's religious view and activism is pointed out. While that is great and wonderful, I think those are wonderful attributes to having a diversity, I do have a question of how that is relevant to being positive to our school's education. Another thing that I do want to say is I do appreciate the hard work that you do. As public servants, the things that you do carry lots of optics involved. And in optics, as an observer, is that my first observation is that I didn't expect to see this many individuals here in this room. My second observation is that the first speaker wanted to state that she does not want to, that she wants an environment free of religious influence, and yet this board member, this board cited an appointee activism in that case. It appears, and in what my observation is, it appears that a particular group that happens to be Christian is being pushed out of the school. And as an observer, it forces a question in my mind that the optics of this is, why is the school board pushing on an organization that happens to be Christian and yet appoint a member because of her Muslim activism? I want you to do that. I want you to consider this. Consider the optics of your decision, as it does appear to favor one religion over the other. Thank you.
Next up, we have Sarah McCarty. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Sarah McCarty. I live at 404 Delaware Drive. I spoke several weeks ago about my concerns with LifeWise Academy, and I'm back today to speak to agenda item 13 and to express my support for rescinding the RTRI policy. I speak as a parent of a current 5th grade student at Hanby Elementary, a teacher in a neighboring district, and as a member of the LGBTQIA community. My contributions as a parent stem from the issues that my daughter has encountered at Hanby Elementary with LifeWise, and that has had a presence for a handful of years there. My wife and I decided that our daughter would not be attending LifeWise Academy because of the organization's clear stance against LGBTQIA folks. And as I expressed at the previous meeting, we had hoped that simply opting out would be a decision that suited our family well. Unfortunately, our daughter has repeatedly been pressed by students in the LifeWise program to explain and defend her religious beliefs at lunch, on the playground, on the bus, and after school. She has been asked to defend the LGBTQIA community, to defend her moms, to defend her family. These are her lived experiences as a 10-year-old child, and it is my job as her mother to show up and give voice to her experiences. My child and all of the diverse students of Westerville City Schools should be able to receive a public education without fear of increased harassment and discrimination. I'm aware that there are plenty of religious institutions in the area that do not condone, support, or welcome my family, but the incorporation of LifeWise Academy into the school day creates a confusing melding of religion and school. The adults in this room can discuss the ways in which this program operates outside of Westerville City Schools, but the kids don't grasp this concept. Students only see their peers leaving from lunch or recess to attend a club that takes place during the day. It's all school in the eyes of 6 to 11-year-olds. As an educator, I'm incredibly concerned about the impact that increased discrimination and harassment has on student mental health and well-being. Marginalized students, especially those in the LGBTQIA+ community, are frequent victims of bullying, harassment, and discrimination. These children have higher rates of absences from school, increased rates of self-harm and suicidal ideation, and unfortunately increased rates of suicide by death, or death by suicide. Students must feel a true sense of belonging in school, and that starts during their earliest experiences in our education system. I teach high school students and have co-advised the school's GSA. By high school, it often feels too late to make students feel safe. They are beaten down by years of being the victims of bullying and harassment, many which have taken place at school and much of which goes unreported. But this board has an opportunity to stand up for historically and systemically oppressed student populations across the spectrum of diversity by rescinding a policy that facilitates the teaching of intolerance during the school day. Last, as a member of the LGBTQIA+ community myself and a longtime resident of Westerville, I am deeply saddened that this program has been allowed to exist and flourish in our schools. I attended Westerville City Schools K-12, Amherst, Heritage North. There's no other place I would want to live or raise my family. But to see the ways in which a well-funded conservative organization with such a clear agenda, an agenda that has been so clearly illuminated on by previous speakers, has been allowed to operate in our public schools is disheartening. It makes me wonder if my family belongs here and if I belong here. With that, I again voice my support for rescinding the RTI policy, because the decision to do so prioritizes all students in our public school system, will help rebuild community, recenter inclusion, and restore a sense of belonging for all. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes that set of public comments. And so moving along to old business, may I have a motion to approve policy 5112, entrance requirements?
So moved. Second.
Discussion, questions? All right. Seeing none, Ms. Marshall?
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Leading?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. And next up, we have the first reading of policy 5223, absences for religious instruction. And Ms. Hamburg, would you please talk to us about this?
Yes, again, this is a first reading. Our primary mission is to educate kids, and having them leave during the day is, we believe, is not in alignment with that. So due to continued concerns about this disruption of our primary mission, we're bringing a first reading to you tonight to rescind policy 5223, absences for religious instruction.
Thank you. I'm happy to kick us off. So I've prepared some comments about this because I've been thinking a lot about it. Initially, absence for religious instruction came up as a compliance issue, but as I started to look at it, I realized it didn't make sense to take kids out of school. I have significant concerns about the distractions caused by pulling kids out of school during the middle of the day. We have such limited time with students, and there's a lot that needs to happen to ensure they transition in and out of school safely and efficiently. Also, while recess is important for allowing students to blow off steam and return ready to learn, it's also a crucial part of their development. The cognitive, social, emotional, and physical benefits of play are well documented by organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and others. I continue to remain puzzled by the strong push to operate programs that require kids to leave school during the middle of the day, especially when students interested in such programs could be dropped off before school or picked up afterwards. This approach could even alleviate childcare issues for parents on certain days or altogether, while still providing religious instruction. Programs offering religious instruction could pick students up after school, provide childcare, provide religious instruction, and then parents could pick their child up on their way home from work, like many do from other after-school programs, like I did for years. I'm also continuing to be mindful and concerned about the potential strain on our resources if multiple programs were to operate during the school day, ensuring legal compliance for each program, as well as managing the logistics of kids going and coming would require significant staff and resources. Rescinding this policy would be consistent with how we've handled another situation where social support liaisons were meeting with students during the school day. We maintained these meetings while during lunch and recess were disruptive to the school day in the buildings. There's been a lot of misinformation circulating, so I want to make one thing very clear. Excuse me. My concern around this policy has nothing to do with any specific religion or religious programs in general. It's about utilizing the time we have with students in schools to focus on educating them and minimizing disruptions to the school day for students, teachers, and staff. I believe my position allows for both. It's not an either or. Goals to be accomplished, kids get their full day in school and can participate in a religious program outside of school time. I also remain concerned about liability. Initially, when we realized this program violated our policy in the Ohio Revised Code, we focused on a solution that ensured compliance with the law. As we've been looking at these release time programs, which I had stated earlier, my apprehension remains about this in the attention, energy that it takes to ensure that any future programs are in compliance with the law, which again demands additional resources and diverts us from our core focus. I really understand my concerns may invoke a range of emotions tonight, and I anticipate more in the coming days. However, I strongly urge everyone to focus on the well-being of the students in the district and refrain from spreading misinformation or, even worse, hate. We have so many wonderful things happening in our schools, and this district is filled with amazing students, staff, teachers, and community members who care deeply about the more than 14,700 children we serve. So let's come back together for the benefit of all of these children, which are our future.
Thank you, President Meyer. I'd like to say that that reflects my own journey with this, right? Being first concerned about compliance issues and then learning more about allowing any outside organization to take students off campus at lunch and return them. So I cannot stress enough that to me, this policy and whatever decision the board makes, upon a second reading and a vote, is not about any particular religion. It is about disruption to the school day, period.
So I echo the comments of my fellow board members. I think you said this, Christy, that this is not an either or. This is not a you can have school or you can have religion, but not both. This is a both. You can have both. It's just that kids have a finite amount of time with us during school to learn, and it is up to us as a board, as a superintendent, as administrators and teachers to provide them with the best possible environment for that learning. And disruptions hinder that ability, and they need to be minimized. So again, this initially started out as kind of a compliance thing, and the more you pull on the thread, other things are coming up, and we want to make sure that we are minimizing all those distractions. The kids have so little time in class. Making sure that they have everything they need to have a continuous day is in their best interest. And I want to make very clear, we are not prohibiting anyone from exercising their rights. There is no prohibition on that. Nobody is saying that you aren't allowed to be who you are. Everyone's free to worship as they would like to worship. This policy, in effect or not in effect, does not change that. So these types of organized programs, I feel, are just best suited for children not in the middle of the school day.
I want to I guess I want to educate everyone, if they're not familiar, what is the role of a school board member? Because really, we only have a couple responsibilities. One is to employ the superintendent and treasurer and to evaluate them, and then to set policy and to be fiscal stewards for our community. That's our job. Our job is to look at these policies and how they impact our kids, which Christy said, 14,700 kids and 2,000 employees, how this impacts them. This policy, 5223, does cause disruption for our students and our staff. I think it's time for us to take a look at these policies, or this policy in particular, and how it invites all types of groups and entities into our school day and what that would cause. I mean, just take a moment and think about that. Also think about how important was recess to you as a child? Being able to play with your friends, get out in the sunshine, to move. And mental health professionals tell us how important those things are. I also think about what happens if this would move to the middle school or to high school. Can you imagine a group full of high schoolers jumping into a car saying they're gonna go off to some entity and never arriving there? Never arriving there. We need to take a break, look at this policy, how it's gonna impact all of our kids, not just our elementary school kids, and then move forward. That's where I'm at. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next up, we're moving to standing business, 14.01, donations. Ms. Marshall.
You want to do a motion in a second?
Oh, yeah, I need a motion, sorry. It's been a long night. May I get a motion to approve the donations as presented?
So moved. Second.
Okay.
Thank you, President Meyer, members of the board. So for the current request, donation that we have is $93,688. That brings our current fiscal year to date total to $110,581.59. It's just amazing what we have.
I just want to say thank you to the community for their continuing support of the Westerville City Schools. This is great.
Ready to vote?
Yeah.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Liebman?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. Next up, may I have a motion to approve out-of-state overnight field trips?
So moved.
Second.
Welcome, Ms. Baldwin.
Good evening, President Meyer, members of the board, Superintendent Hamburg, and Mrs. Marshall. I have several trips for you to consider for approval tonight, the first of which is a trip for Westerville Central students to tour Dublin, Ireland during spring break of 2026. Students would not miss any school days if they participate in that trip. The other set of trips are our Washington, D.C. trips.
Can we please have, thank you.
The other set of trips are Washington, D.C. trips for our 8th grade students. So you see proposals from all 5 middle schools before you. 3 of our middle schools will be traveling at the same time at the end of April. And then Walnut would be the 1st of May, and Heritage would be the 2nd week in May. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Are we using the same group for the travel for the DC trip?
So Genoa does use Prodigy, and the other 4 buildings use Prime Tours.
Okay. And then I also noticed, so Minerva Park, first year middle school on track, 90 students. How many 8th graders do we have there?
I would have to look at the numbers for enrollment. I'm sorry, I didn't
no,
have that
that's
number.
okay, that's okay.
But I know
No.
it's not complete, it's not in our
around
entire
250.
eighth, pardon?
I think it's around
250.
250.
So, and that's an estimated number, so our students and families will have an information session. There is a cost for families on this, and then our organizations, the different travel companies do work with families who might need additional support too.
Yeah.
But it is not something all of our students participate in, something that our team has conversations about and thinking about what other experiences we can provide our students who may not participate.
Sure, sure. No, I love seeing 90. I thought that was great. So, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments, questions? All right. Thank you.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Leiband? Yes. Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. May I have a motion to approve the resolution for the purchase of Chromebooks, including equipment and licensing with the annual appropriations budget?
So moved?
Second.
Welcome, Mr. Stifler.
Good evening, President Meyer, Vice President Altman, members of the board, Ms. Hamburg, Ms. Marshall. Before you tonight is a resolution to approve the purchase of Chromebooks, including Chromebook carts, cases, and licensing. We do refresh cycles every year. This is part of our normal appropriated budget. So I'm happy to answer questions for.
Are there any questions, comments? Seeing none? Oh, go ahead.
Just, Mr. Stifler, could you just briefly remind everybody, where we are in terms of Chromebooks and numbers of students?
Sure. So this refresh handles about 7,000 Chromebooks. So these are most of the devices that were purchased right when COVID started. So we're up against the end of life on this count. We have a hair over 14,000 students, as you mentioned earlier. We have about 12,500 devices in the district. So this is a pretty fair amount of our Chromebooks that we're refreshing at one time. Like I said, it just happened that because we made all the purchases at once, all the refresh happens at once. So.
Okay, thank you.
Now, we did send these out for RFP, so they were done through a public bid. You guys have the results in front of you. So.
And I think to further answer her question, we're looking at by the beginning of next school year that we would be 1-to-1 and that our older kids would be able to have one device to take home. Because I don't think you got that part.
Correct.
Was that what you were asking? Where we were with numbers?
It was sort of behind there, but yeah, I'm just thinking through the numbers myself,
So
of how we're getting there.
First part of this is a refresh of existing equipment. The second part will be purchased for additional lab or Chromebooks that would be needed to get us to that one-to-one level. So.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Any other? All right, will you take the vote?
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Leiband? Yes. Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. Next up, we have public comment, and we do have a few. We have a lot. So I'm just gonna reinstate that if you, just when you approach, please state your name, your address, and if you have, if someone's already said something, you can please just say, I echo so-and-so's comments. But just a reminder, each speaker will have 5 minutes to address the board. A timer will be shown on the screens, and Mr. Reeves will call time when 5 minutes has elapsed. Please keep your comments professional, avoid the use of inappropriate language, and refrain from identifying individuals in the event of a complaint. Please address your comments to the board and not the audience. Our first speaker this evening is Gary Mulder. Thank you for the correction. Welcome.
My name's Gary Mulder. I live at 5794 Plantation Road in Sunbury. I'm a volunteer for LifeWise. I've been doing that for the past year. And I was going to mention a number of different things that we accomplish with the children while you have them in the classroom. But after hearing your comments with regard to disruption, so forth, I have to mention to you, I doubt if you've ever been there when we've picked up or dropped off the children. It is very orderly. The kids going to recess go to recess. The kids going to LifeWise go to LifeWise. We have a recess for them, so they do get lots of exercise. I can guarantee you that. My knees will tell you that. But we also do, we use the Bible as a teaching tool, and the various things that they are taught are life benefits. They taught responsibility, discernment, trustworthiness, teachability, wholeheartedness, humility, loyalty, perseverance, forgiveness, love, availability, wisdom, compassion, hope, confidence, growth, availability, courage, stewardship, kindness, attentiveness, which is very important in school, and commitment. I would hope you would continue to at least give these kids a chance to participate in a very worthwhile character-building program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Joel Penton. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Joel Penton. I'm the founder and CEO of LifeWise Academy. I am not a Westerville resident, but the local team did request that I come and speak a few words. I'll keep it brief from my perspective. I just want to clarify for the board that release time is a standard and mainstream practice. Over 75% of all school districts in Ohio do have a release time policy. LifeWise, just LifeWise, we're operating in over 200 school districts statewide. And so I just wanted again to clarify, the move to rescind your release time policy is a bold move. It is an extreme move. It is a radical move, and it sends a very clear message to religious families in your district. And that message is that they're not welcome. Religious families in your district will be left wondering, why is it that we had the choice of religious instruction, like 75% of Ohio?
Please let him speak.
It's okay. We had the choice, like 75% of school districts. Why is it that Worthington, Olentangy, New Albany, Big Walnut, Columbus City Schools, why is it that all of these parents have this option, and we had it, but it was just taken away? This is a bold move. It's also bold considering we've had a program functioning for 2 years. There's over a dozen people who are employed locally by LifeWise Academy. This board, if you rescind the policy, will overnight take those jobs away from those individuals. There are hundreds of families that are engaged with this program. So I just want to be clear, again, that this is very bold. Shutting down a religious program is not a display of tolerance. It is the opposite. Taking a religious program away from children who are currently enrolled is not a display of inclusion. It is the opposite. So I'm asking you, the red shirts are asking you to don't do the radical thing, don't do the extremist thing, do what is standard in the state of Ohio, and uphold your release time policy. Thank you.
Next up, thank you. Next up, we have Danielle. I'm having a hard time reading this last name. Watkins, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Danny Watkins. I am a Westerville City School District parent, and I live at 3410 Saigon Avenue, Saigon Drive. My God, I don't even know my own address at this point. Saigon Drive in Westerville, Ohio. I am here today to support and fully agree with rescinding the RTRI program. I also want to say that I am the proud parent of an LGBTQIA student who graduated from Westerville South. She had a wonderful experience there because so much effort was made to include her. And I think that that does not happen on its own. It happens due to action from all the way from the school board down to the teachers, due to the other students. We build that respect by creating it from the ground up. And that does not stay that way. We have to actively engage in continuing to provide that inclusion and respect. I think the LifeWise program builds division. It tells my child she's going to go to hell. It tells her that I am going to go to hell because I did not marry her father. I don't think this is appropriate in schools. That's the end of the line for me. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have Kirk Fischbach. Welcome.
Kirk's actually my brother. My name's Kyle.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's really hard to read some of these handwritings.
Good evening. My name is Kyle Fischbach, Westerville North class of 2002. I reside at 1393 Sugarberry Court in Westerville. I'm a founding and current leadership board member of LifeWise Westerville. Rescinding the release time for religious instruction policy is not the solution. Out of respect for your time, I have simply asked those in support of religious freedoms and keeping the release time for religious instruction policy to silently stand to acknowledge their support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Ross Aldman, sorry. Can read your handwriting.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. And I celebrate what's happening tonight because we have seen a wonderful display of the freedom of speech to present ideas, and we have lots of diversity. We have lots of disagreement. And one of the things that comes with lots of diversity is we do have more disagreement. So to protect the freedom of speech and the freedom of religion, the more diverse we become, the harder we have to fight for that freedom to be protected, and the more conflict that there will be. That's natural. If we're not teaching our kids that that's a natural part of life, that there's going to be disagreements, then there's no way we can protect freedom of speech and freedom of religion. And I would just submit to this board tonight that even in your expression of your opinions, we heard Ms. Thuban, welcome to the board, take an oath tonight to protect the Constitution. Your role is not to express your opinions on this or to make your decision based upon your opinions on this. Your role is to protect the Constitution. You all took an oath to that. The Constitution and the case law around the Constitution on this issue is crystal clear. Release time religious education is an appropriate, protected right of the freedom of religion. Can it get messy? Yes. Does it require some disruption to the day and some administrative management? The protection of all rights require disruption and administrative management. If you abdicate the responsibility based upon disruption to the day to protect the right, then you abdicate the responsibility of the state, which is to protect these rights. So if you are going to protect the Constitution, you will keep this policy in place because it's already approved. If you don't, you subject yourselves to going against established case law, to promoting discrimination, whether you intend to or not. It sounds like you don't intend to, and I trust you on that. But you actually project a discrimination, and you subject yourself as a school to legal liability. And the potential of having to be involved in a massive lawsuit, which you will lose because it is such well-established rules around this law. Do you really want to spend your time and money fighting a legal battle, or do we want to spend our time and money educating our kids and protecting the freedoms of students? And this isn't a Christian thing. This is a religious thing. It is protecting Muslims, it is protecting Hindus, it is protecting Buddhists, it is protecting people whose religion has all sorts of different ideas about what sexuality and gender is. It is protecting everyone. And by removing this policy, we undermined the very core of what democracy is. Democracy is protecting the right of the voice of the people to express their beliefs. And religious release time education has been approved as a choice for parents to choose for their children. If you don't want it, you don't choose it. But if you want that, and you are a Muslim, or you are an atheist, and you want to teach your kids atheism, you have every right, just as LifeWise does, to establish a religious release time instruction thing, and as the state representatives, our responsibility in protecting that freedom is to accommodate it. And if we choose not to accommodate it, we undermine the actual freedom. So please, vote to keep this in place. Don't go against federal and state law and put yourself in a position of going against the Constitution and violating your oath. Thank you.
Next up, we have Matthew Fannin. Welcome.
All right. Good evening, board. Good evening, Superintendent Hamburg. So my name is Matt Fannin. We reside in the Old Mill neighborhood of Westerville. We moved there about 3 years ago from Baltimore, Maryland, and we were really happy to settle into this community. I've been a public educator for 15 years, over 15 years actually, as a teacher, as an administrator, and I'm a firm believer in public education, but we're also believers in our faith. Our whole family wanted to be here tonight to support LifeWise. Our youngest daughter, she's in 5th grade. She goes to Westerville City Schools. She really wanted to be here, but she decided no, soccer practice was more important. My wife and my oldest daughter, who's in 8th grade, had a volleyball game down the street, which they won, thank you. They wanted to be here too. And all this stemmed from some of our conversations around the dinner table about the LifeWise program. We had many conversations, and our daughters just kept asking, why? Why is it not starting yet? Why can't I go? So I mentioned tonight that we could come and support. Both of them asked me to skip their practice, skip their volleyball game, because they firmly believe that this program needs to be in Westerville. I mean, my 8th grader can't even participate in it, but that's how strong that she believes as a 13-year-old. She wants her sister, who's a 5th grader, to have that opportunity. If you take it away, there will be no other opportunity. As I mentioned, Macy is a 5th grader. She's very excited about this program coming this year. She kept talking about it. And we're very proud of her growth personally and her faith. And the steps that she took herself. And she was really looking forward to exercising her right to attend the LifeWise program during school hours. She asked me almost daily, and if the people in here know Macy, when can I start? When can I start? When can I start? It's every day. So that's what we want to know. When can she start? I've heard a lot of thoughts and feelings from individuals tonight and in previous board meetings. Particularly even heard a specific board member share their, what I thought was inappropriate biased opinions before. Some people feel like their kids will be left out or feel like they're not part of a team if they don't attend LifeWise. Well, first of all, LifeWise is for everyone, right? It is for everyone. That's the beauty of this program. It's not like sports where your kids can try out and they can be cut. They can be left off the team. It's not like our own school system, where some kids get to go to Hamby and Emerson, but other kids don't get selected. That doesn't mean I want you guys to shut down those schools, or I don't want there to be sports. It just happens. So the fact is, LifeWise is for everyone. Some people feel like their students will miss core instruction or worry about the bus might be late. This is 1 hour for 1 day each week during lunch and recess. they get recess time those other 4 days, and as we heard, they get recess during that day as well. Instead of worrying about a bus that could possibly be late, I mean, we've had our own transportation issues in this district where already 4 times my daughter's middle school has been let out early. That's a disruption to instruction. And about the other policies, I know somebody else already mentioned this as well, about possibly the lunch policy. Have we talked to the other districts? Have we talked to our neighboring districts, the hundreds of schools that are providing this program? So let's not have our feelings get in the way of facts. The fact is, it's a welcoming program for everyone. It's optional. You do not have to have your child attend. The fact is that students can attend and they can use their right to attend this program off campus. So let's stop dragging our feet and letting our feelings and opinions get in the way, and let the LifeWise program continue in Westerville. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Chad Miller. I'm just going to remind you, if you don't have anything new to say, feel free to just say your name, your address, and whether you support so-and-so's comments.
Good evening, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak tonight. We appreciate it. I'm here tonight to represent truth, and sadly, many people in this country have misrepresented this truth, and it breaks my heart because the gospel is for everybody. Statistics have been shown that it is absolutely true that children and families have greatly benefited from LifeWise. I think we would all agree that we are all here today for the well-being of children in this city. In a world full of lies and misinformation, the next generation needs truth. More than ever, children need to know what they believe and why they believe it. I praise God that we still live in a free country, one that was founded upon the freedom of religion. What does the word religion mean? Well, here's one simple definition from Oxford Languages: a pursuit of interest that one ascribes supreme importance. I think if we would all be honest, we are all religious to some degree, especially if we use this definition. We all have something we pursue to supreme importance. Now, I hope we would all agree that we should all be able to exercise our constitutional right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Taking away this violates the most fundamental basic truth of our right as an American. Now, if a program would teach children how to demonstrate love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, would it be beneficial for the children and society as a whole? This is what LifeWise teaches, and this is what the Bible teaches. This will be evidenced by one who has truly been transformed by the good news of the life, the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. These are his characteristics that he demonstrated perfectly on our behalf, and by his Spirit, he enables all those who place faith without discrimination in his finished work on the cross to demonstrate not perfectly, but progressively by continuing to hear this life-saving message that LifeWise provides. I understand that many will not agree with the message, but I doubt there is even one person in here that doesn't want positive change in our schools. Otherwise, we would not be here. Imagine if a small percentage of students began to demonstrate this true love and joy and peace that comes from this message, and they began to express it towards one another, and then they reached one another, and those statistics began to double, and our children loved instead of hating one another, which is what Jesus truly promoted. Now ask yourself this question: are you demonstrating true love and inclusivity, which what you say you proudly stand for, by opposing this program? Everyone today wants everyone to be inclusive, yet ironically, there's no inclusivity towards Christians. We aren't asking for the Bible to be taught to everyone in school.
Please.
Although if we would look at the statistics to what has happened over the decades since we removed God from our schools, we'd see why our nation is in the shape that it's in. We're here because it's our constitutional right, and it's a law in this city to be able to provide students with the option of pursuing God during school hours off of school grounds. But I think there's an even deeper problem here. It's the truth that all of us are born opposed to God. It's the truth. Tonight, this is not just a board meeting. This is a spiritual battle. And sadly, I do not think you understand the implications of what you may be going against. The reality is you are not just opposing LifeWise, but you are opposing the God who created you in his image.
Please stop.
And although you, like us, have all sinned against God, there is hope and life available to all of us, because while we were still weak, Christ died for the ungodly. And he paid the fine.
I'm going to ask you to
owed.
please stop, or we'll have you removed if you do it again.
He paid the fine we owed on the cross, and since his sacrifice was accepted by God, he rose from the grave, defeating sin and death. And if you would turn from your sin and believe in Jesus, you will be saved. And that's anybody that is living in any sinful lifestyle. Now, your relationship with God can be restored, and you can live how we were designed to live, which is in love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such there is no law. So I beg and plead, please repent today. And please, I plead with you to turn from trying to stop the good news from reaching these children.
Thank you for your time. All right, next up we have Angela Gregory. Angela Gregory. Okay. Next up, Kathy Bowler. Welcome.
Good evening, President Meyer, board members, Superintendent Hamburg. Thank you for hearing all the comments tonight. My name is Kathy Bowler. I live at 6671 Meadow Glen, and I've been in Westerville for over 25 years. I've had 3 children very successfully graduate from Westerville City Schools. We love this community for the caring, kind, and friendly people that live here. And obviously, we have a lot of passion for our children. That's why I'm here tonight, is to talk about the children. My heart is breaking for the youth in this district who've been attending this LifeWise program and who will be very, very saddened when you rescind the policy. We've heard from children. They talk about what a wonderful program it is for them, what they are learning, and the kindness and caring that they learn from that program. I ask you not to remove their hope, the hope that they have in the messages they're learning about the gospel of God and his saving grace. And I just ask you to really reconsider your pre-existing opinions about that and retain that policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Dan Carey. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Board, for listening. And my name is Dan Carey. I live at 106 Whisperwood Court, 43081. I've been a member of this city since I've been here since 1981. My daughter attended school K through 12, and I have a grandson who is in the 3rd grade at Emerson. And again, I think I've said before, we are extremely pleased with the school system here. My daughter went off to Otterbein and graduated and is very successful. My little guy, my grandson, is having a good time in Emerson. The principal in Emerson, by the way, knows all those kids by their name. He is amazing. And the teachers are wonderful. But I'm here tonight to support LifeWise. And why is that? Well, you've heard everything that's been said about LifeWise, and I won't repeat all that and waste your time. But I did talk with my pastor about what am I supposed to say. I attend the Sunbury Church of the Nazarene. And I asked him, what should I say? And he said, well, they should see Jesus with whatever you say. So I said, okay. I prayed about it, and I should speak the truth and love. I think you've heard a lot of the truth. But I think we're missing something about love. My heart breaks for those people who come up here and they sound like they're broken. They're angry, and they're taking it out on LifeWise, and they're broken in some way. And my heart breaks for them. I heard things that they think that LifeWise is against them. Maybe they've been hurt by religion at some point. And that's sad. That's not what we're about. That's not what Jesus is about. As a matter of fact, let me explain A couple weeks ago, before the last board meeting, LifeWise had a prayer meeting at the Hope Church here in Westerville. And I attended that prayer meeting, and it was wonderful. We got off in our little groups and we prayed about what? We prayed about everybody on this board, everyone. We wanted you to have the spirit that this LifeWise program and RTRI policy what it can do. And we wanted to change your heart. And then we prayed for those people you've heard tonight. They're upset, they're sad, they're broken, they're hurting. My heart breaks for folks I've heard tonight. The comments I've heard tonight from them isn't what we're about, isn't what a Christian should be about. And so I'm saddened that there are people like that. I'm just hoping that you will reconsider and continue the RTRI policy. You've heard reasons why. And I'm going to just read briefly here. This came to me. Three things will last forever: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of this is love. That's from 1 Corinthians. Oh, by the way, I told my pastor I was going to not be exactly like Jesus. I won't turn over any tables tonight. Okay, so I won't do that. But there's some good news before I leave. Good news. I attend the church in Sunbury, Church of the Nazarene, and everybody is welcome, no matter what color of shirt they're wearing. And if you don't believe me, you come and see me, and I'll be sure you are welcomed. But this week, LifeWise begins their program again in Sunbury, Ohio. And my church this year, my church, Sunbury Church of the Nazarene, will be a host church for the first time, beginning tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Scott Zoom. Welcome.
Scott Ziny, thank you. Live on Delaware Drive. I have a daughter who is in the public school system here in Westerville in elementary school. First off, one of the things that people have brought up is that LifeWise could bring bullying into the school system. And they say that that's not true or not something that they preach, but I was very disturbed to see a new board member basically be bullied by a couple speakers, and not one person that spoke on LifeWise's behalf after that denounced that bullying. So that's clearly on display. It was because diversity was mentioned in the intro, and the reason that was included is because diversity is good. Hard stop. Thank you for your level-headed decision-making. It's not radical. That is intentional, divisive rhetoric that's being used. It's level-headed. I appreciate it. As far as diversity and inclusion, their side had a speaker who basically admitted that Christians are supreme and above all others, and no one denounced that either. So I thought that was strange. A speaker also brought up that there are 60 Christian churches in the area. I think that's probably 60 great opportunity for good Sunday school programs if you're interested in teaching values and giving your kids exposure to Christian education. Just maybe look into that. I'm not broken. I strongly believe in the separation of church and state. I will reiterate what I said in my last speech. I chose to send my child to a school with no religious ties or involvement when I chose a public school. There are many hours outside of a school day that can be devoted to Christian teachings. Family can be involved in those decision-making. It does not belong in the public school system. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next up, Larry Jenkins. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Larry Jenkins. I reside at 58 West College Avenue, and I also am a business owner here in town, and I am here to speak on a different subject for this evening, and that would be the levy that's on the ballot, the combined Westville School levy that's on the ballot for November 5th. It's political season out there, and there's a lot of noise, and I'd like to take a moment to clearly address why this levy is needed. Even in the best of times, school districts are forced to return to the ballot periodically to address operational cost increases because our state law holds revenue flat. We anticipate these issues, but our needs are exacerbated by the state leadership state leadership's continued efforts to shift funding from our district to other districts in the state and to move funding from public education to private institutions. The real-world consequences of these funding changes are $4 million less in funding this fiscal year, and the state's share of education of our children falling from 43% in fiscal year 2020 to just 23% in fiscal year 2025, this fiscal year. These decisions by state leadership continues to put pressure on our district, our residents, and our students. Let's be clear. This fall levy is not providing anything new. Passage of this levy will keep our schools competitive. They'll maintain our current programs for all students and address the needs of required programs and supports and other student supports. They'll continue safety enhancements for our schools, and they'll update our classrooms to meet modern learning needs and to create specialized spaces for those learning environments. Education is a people business. From teachers and educational staff are in high demand. Without voter support for our schools, we'll be unable to keep up with wage growth and growing expenses, which means we lose the best talent to our neighboring districts. We fully recognize that costs are up and that people are struggling. It's never easy to ask for money. We take this request very seriously, and we hope our community will continue to make the investment in the important part of our community. Like we've heard tonight, when people look at a community that they're going to move into, the first thing they look at is the quality of the schools. Not just if they have students in those schools, but it's also an indicator of the quality of the community. It's the strength of the economy in the community, the values of the community. Our strong community is built on what we used to say a three-legged stool. And the community comes together are the quality of our schools, a strong business environment where people can make a reasonable living, and strong civic services that keep us safe and provide amenities where we can play and enjoy life. When one leg fails, the community becomes unstable and the rest begins to fall as well. I'm here to ask for your support, everyone's continued support for our schools. We all love the quality of life that comes with living and working here, but it didn't happen by accident. We are here as a result of careful planning and lots of hard work. I'm hoping you will join me to continue to protect the Westville way of life and investing in our schools. If you would like more information on the levy and the details that the board has put forth, I encourage you to visit the district's webpage for the levy fact page. It lays out all the things that the bond and the operational levy will address. If you'd like to get involved and help support the effort, you can find more information on the Our Community, Our Schools website at ocoswesterville.com. In closing, I just ask everyone to please vote yes for our schools on or before November 5th. Thank you for your time and your support.
Thank you. Next up, we have Holly Smith. Holly Smith? Oh, okay. Jordan Keller? Jordan Keller? Huh? Oh, welcome. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jordan Keller. I'm 658 Big Rock Drive. I'm a graduate of the Westerville City Schools public school system. And when I went to school here, LifeWise was not an option, but I really wish it was. Instead, I was forced to sit in the cafeteria where the staff and the teachers yelled at our class to be quiet and stop talking because we were so annoying and so loud. So why would I want to grow up in a system where the teachers are telling me that what I'm saying is not worth it, that my talking to my friends, and we weren't loud, but they were too loud for all the teachers and staff. We just had to be quiet. On top of that, playground time was not a great time. We were, if you weren't in with certain people, you were left out of their games, or you just weren't included. People are believing you are included on the playground, and I would have preferred to go to LifeWise growing up. On top of all of this, my siblings and I faced persecution from teachers, making fun of us for our beliefs in the classroom in front of fellow students. My sister was mocked for working at Chick-fil-A, which is just a restaurant, but the teacher said that she was terrible for working for such a company in front of the whole class. I was told that church was just a glorified dating service, and the teacher knew I was a regular attender of a church in the area. So I full support of LifeWise in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. So that brings us to board comments. Who would like to go first?
Want me to go? Just congratulations to our retirees. We're excited for you for this next phase of life. And to Anissa, welcome. You are where you belong. And I'm excited to work together. And that's it for me.
I would just like to build on that, so yes, welcome, we're glad you're here. And wanted to reference the state report card. So thank you to all of our educators who are amazing, who work very hard every day with our young people to educate them in all kinds of different ways, excuse me, and the state report card measures some of those. And so I really genuinely appreciate all of the work that goes into that from our educators and our students. I got my own students at home. I know how hard they work to make that happen. So just a big thank you.
I will echo the welcome, Anissa. I'm glad to have your voice and experiences at the table. And I do believe that we should celebrate when somebody from an underrepresented group stands up and earns a seat at the table. So I know a couple of people mentioned that, but so again, welcome. I'm excited to work with you. I also wanted to tag onto the report card piece because I wanted to say good job, Nicole Marshall and your team, because when we look at percentage of funds that are spent on classroom instruction, we are actually ahead of the curve. So we are being very efficient with our tax dollars, so thank you. That's all I have.
I just wanted to thank everyone for their really kind welcome, and I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I recognize it's very late, and regardless of what your position is, I recognize how hard it is to provide public testimony, so thank you.
And I want to echo my colleagues' comments. I am thrilled that you're here. I'm looking forward to working with and learning from you, so welcome. And I'm just going to echo to the retirees, congratulations, and the staff. Yes, I can't thank you enough for all the hard work that you've done, and it's really reflected. So that is all from me. And with that, the board will meet in regular session on Monday, October 14th, 2024 at 6 p.m. at the Early Learning Center, which is here. That's for people online, 936 Eastwind Drive, and that's Westerville. And may I have a motion to enter into executive session to discuss employment, dismissal, and compensation of public employees?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Marshall?
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Liebing?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes, you're more than welcome to stay if you would like, but we're going to head and talk, and I don't know when we'll be back. So thank you.
It's 9:04.
So we're back from executive session, and may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
You, Jen?
Yeah, they're not on.
Yeah, they're not on.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Levy?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.